So when we get into this form of conferences, we normally start off saying that please switch off your mobiles, don't check your mobiles, The world is moving so fast. If you switch off your mobiles from morning to evening, we don't know how many tariffs we would have missed, how many wars would have stopped and started, right? So it's okay to check your phones once in a while, rather than switching off your mobiles and physically being present here and then mentally being in some other place. So it's okay. Thank you. And good morning to you. It's a true privilege to stand before this gathering of founders, partners, CXOs, senior leaders in Kochi and, in and around Kochi at this NASSCOM conference on a theme so timely and charged, era of intelligent progress. And the word era, intelligent and progress are very important. I'll get into why progress is important versus privilege at some point of time. It's a privilege to share the stage with so many people committed, and I, in fact, spoke with some of the co-speakers in the speaker room, got some great insights from them. So the journey for today, so there's a disclaimer which has come in. We're going to have this 20-minute journey for today from my part in 4 different segments. We're going to start off with what is the challenges which the modern world is facing? What is the impact of modern technology? When I say modern technology, it's not just about AI. We want to cover everything beyond AI, including AI and beyond AI, because it's an ecosystem of technologies. I'm going to get to the core part of it, which is the innovation paradox, the 3 core tensions which I see in the innovation field. And then eventually we'll wrap up with the 5 imperatives which we need to look at, right? So let's get into the first thing, which is the modern world challenges. I'm sure all of you would be aware of the challenges in the modern world. Wars between countries. Can you make a guess on the number of wars which are happening in this world in an average year? 2, 3, 5. On an year, there is normally 40 to 50 wars which are happening. When I normally talk about wars, it's not small conflicts which are localized. This year, in 2024, we had 61 countries on wars. 61 wars which are happening, 36 countries which are on wars. This is the highest since the Second World War. And this is increasing. There's something which we need to look into, because this also takes us to the second point, which is human displacement from wars. Until last year, the whole world had about 120 million refugees or displacements out of wars. 120 million is about 1 in every 67 people if you consider just one generation. But if you consider all the generations till now, it would still be 1 in 150. We are here in the safe confines of 4-point Sheraton. We don't realize what's happening in the world around us. But displacement is not just about people moving. There are a lot of economic issues, financial issues, cultural issues, humanity crisis which comes with all of these things. And the host nations which take in displaced people faces a lot of other issues, right? Then there is the human rights strain. In over 80 countries, there is a deterioration in political rights and civil liberties. 50% of the world are in some form of authoritarian rule. Can you even imagine that in this modern world? There are a few more democracies which are restrictive democracies. You can name them as democracies, but in all practical sense, those are restrictive democracies. And a third of the world, the government uses advanced surveillance methods to survey the citizens and everyone in the country. You got trade wars. I don't need to speak a lot about trade wars. That's there in the news. The World Trade Organization expects about 1.5% decrease in the whole world trade during this year because of a lot of the tariffs and everything which is happening. There is poverty and inequality. I mean, Kerala has declared itself as a state which has come out of extreme poverty. But the truth is that, forget Kerala, remaining part of the world, we have got 700 million people, about 8.5% of the global population in some form of poverty. Jobs and unemployment, 400 million people, about 5% of unemployment, which is there cutting across sectors, geographies, localities. Underlying to societies, we have got a problem of polarized societies. What is polarity? We think in binary. I'm either here or I'm there. I'm politically here, I'm politically there. There is no continuum in thoughts, which is something which is, frightening, because the public discourse is divided. And somewhere inside, when you speak to an individual across the board, you somewhere think that you are in one side and the other person thinks the other side. That's a challenge. Climatic challenges, climatic changes, I think no need to even discuss about that. This has been the hottest year. Last 10 years have been the hottest in the history of mankind. Health crisis, the moment I talk about the global health, you might think about COVID. I'm not talking about COVID, but about 1 million people or more die every year because of, antimicrobial resistance. And this is going to cross 10 million in another 10 to 20 years, bigger than cancer. And you've got a lot of new diseases which are coming out from glacier melting and, zoonotic, spillover from animals and whatnot. So is it a doomsday for all of us? What is the way ahead is the question. There are just two things which can save human life. One is humanity, and the other is technology. I'm not sure whether I should be giving a speech on humanity. Probably you should have some gurus out here. But let's think into what technology has been doing, what technology has done in the recent years. If you look into the last 3-4 years, this is an amazing period in human history where the compute, connectivity, sensors, data, everything is at scale. You got artificial intelligence in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, when you go to sleep, which can learn, adapt itself, a global network of innovators, startups, founding members, right? And also there is a societal recognition for purpose and inclusion. So let's just deep dive into the impact of modern technology. What has been the impact of modern technology? The reason I want to take into segments is because the moment I speak about technology, we would always think about artificial intelligence. That's a great thing, but we should go beyond that, is what I'm just trying to say. So the first part is generative AI. I'm sure that all of you would have had chat GPTs in your mobile since 2022, metaverse. You look at every co-pilot to do your work every day, and there's a widespread use. It's reshaping the way we interact with machines. Humans find work from machines, automate work. It's dramatically accelerating what organization can do with intelligence and at a moment of scale. We are looking at edge AI and on-device intelligence. I'm sure that some of the speakers we are going to come, I think some of them are in that domain. So as late as 2024, we have come up with specialized microcontrollers and AI hardware and edge devices. It brings intelligence near the sensors, less latency, and greater use of IoT. Quantum computing breakthroughs, which we had in the last 2 years, has been amazing. The quantum H2 processors, which is there. We're going to solve types of problems which we could never solve using classical computing, power in the field of drug discovery and optimization. We've got the next gen semiconductor process nodes. We're going into, sub 3 nanometer and the 2 nanometer segments, wherein we're going to have more powerful chips, highly constrained, edge devices. We're also talking about hyper automation and intelligent workflows. When you have a convergence of, AI and robotic process automation and machine learnings and system integration, what you're looking at is enterprises which are even more efficient. The value of work which humans are going to take is going to be high above the normal value chain. Trust infrastructure, and I'm going to club in 2 segments, which is cyber security and blockchain. Heard a lot about blockchain in the last 7 years. We are doing amazing in the cyber security space. Organizations are getting ready in post-quantum computing. In fact, one of my close teams is also working on post-quantum computing, getting ready for the quantum computing era. AI-powered, AI and machine learning-powered threat detection and zero trust cyber security mesh. We also have an inclination to see how can we make computers think like human brains. I think we are loving our brains so much that there is a lot of work which is happening in neuromorphic and brain-inspired computer architectures. There is also this 6G next-gen connectivity and extended reality, a lot of research work in network infrastructures in terahertz communications, which is happening. And this is going to lay the foundation for smart cities and, telepresence and massive IoT and everything. Regarding digital healthcare and AI in healthcare in the area of genomics and telemedicine and wearable sensors, we are making a lot more of progress, which means health system can, scale rapidly. It can respond effectively when there's a start of an epidemic in an area. And of course, the area of sustainable tech, green data centers and, energy efficient chips and circular economy. I just whizzed past all of these things because I wanted to touch base across the 7 to 8 to 9 key sectors which technology has been, focusing on in the last 5 years. If I put it simply, the engines of progress are firing, Innovation is firing. I'm sure that all of your teams are innovating a lot and a lot of things which are on table. But here is where I would like to bring in the concept of a paradox. We see a lot of extraordinary innovations. There is a scale, there is a pace in innovations, and there is a reasonable amount of permeation into societies. But is there a challenge that there is an uneven extent to which this available for the masses? Are we moving fast enough in relation to the challenges? We talked about wars or whatever it is. If you look at it, the challenges are increasing in a pace which is much more than we have seen in the history. While we are doing great in innovation, it's a moving target. What we are aspiring to reach, even that is changing. So we live in an age of unprecedented possibility, yet also there is an age of unprecedented urgency. The phrase era of intelligent progress, which is the point of discussion today, it's great, it's apt, because intelligence is accelerating, but progress becomes meaningful only when it reaches scale, when it spreads broadly, when it is inclusive. Because without progress, without inclusion, without spreading at scale, the progress tends to be, a sort of privilege for a certain set of individuals who get access to these technologies. Let me put in front of you my next segment, which is the actual innovation paradox, wherein I'll take you through the 3 core tensions in the innovation area. And that's the first one is the speed versus scale versus equity discussion. So innovation today moves at lightning speed, The very speed, however, creates gaps in the benefit it gives to the stakeholders. So we are designing solutions that can transform industries overnight, right? We are scaling them through populations, through sectors, wherever possible. But it might be painfully slow. A new technology might reach 1 billion devices in a few months. But have you ever thought that how long does it take for these technologies to reach the last billion of people, in the sense, the last billion population who are poor? Any technology which we talk about, we think about the first 2, 3, 5 months of progress. But we seldom think, when does it reach the very last consumer? The paradox is this, that speed without scale only creates islands of progress. Islands of progress. Progress in segments, in parts and corners. And scale without equity deepens this digital divide. So true innovation should harmonize all of these things. Speed of innovation to respond to urgency. That's what we saw in the COVID times. Scale to reach meaningful impact. We had great ecosystems in the COVID times to take the vaccines to the masses. And equity to ensure that the progress is shared. Because if innovation leaves behind half the world, it's not progress, it's privilege. The second aspect which I would like to touch base is the technology versus human context. Technology is going on in a maddening pace. We know about it. But how is the ecosystem responding to it? The policies, the regulations, the institutions, are we adapting to the speed of technology? Is it that the technology is moving very fast and things around are not catching up pace. It's a point to think about. So we can generate, with AI, we can generate a piece of code, we can create strategies, but our education systems is the regulation framework, the labor network, the ethics debates, are it progressing in the same speed in which the technology is progressing? This is the paradox which I would like to next highlight, that we are innovating faster than we can integrate. So we need to also focus on integration. Because, for example, if you have a breakthrough in genomics, for instance, you might outpace the regulation on genetic privacy. If you have a great pace of automation, you will end up, being faster than the ability to upskill people. Your data might grow very fast, but it should not, be a situation wherein you don't have a capacity to store it or interpret it. In fact, a few of the large corporations have started working on the gigawatt data centers. You would have seen the news on something coming up in Visakhapatnam by Google and all of those things that's going to take care of it. But how do we ahead of the curve when technology moves so fast? So the real challenge is not whether technology can do something. In fact, technology can, in more often than not, do almost everything which you want to. But whether humans, systems, and societies are able to integrate with the speed of technology. And the third thing, the third submission which I would want to make as far as the core tensions is the urgency versus sustained commitment. So we live in an age of crisis-driven innovation. Pandemics. With the onset of a pandemic, we had a vaccine which came through in a very breakthrough time, right? The whole world population got across the vaccine. The urgency actually fuels incredible breakthroughs. But once the crisis fades, are we losing commitment on taking it further is the question. So the world can mobilize billions for vaccines in a few months. But are we still struggling to fund long-term health infrastructure? This is more of a systemic issue, a priority issue. I'm not talking about technology or the ability to do things. How are we looking things beyond the point of urgency? We are doing great at the sense of urgency. We are responding great at the point of urgency. Are we taking it forward beyond the level of urgency? The paradox here is that urgency sparks innovation, but only sustained commitment transforms it into lasting progress. So we must learn to channelize the intensity of crisis into continuity of purpose. Intensity of crisis should slowly convert into continuity of purpose. Because if only there is a purpose, would the result of the crisis coming into an innovation become meaningful for the masses? You take it across. So the pace of innovation today is extraordinary and the scale is immense. So we are at a turning point. If we combine our technological ingenuity with human purpose and courage, we can turn the speed of change into momentum. I will go to my next segment, which is 5 sets of imperatives, and this is the last segment. So we went through the challenges, the technologies, and the paradox, 3 core tensions. The last segment of this are the 5 imperatives, which I would want you to commit on, because everyone in this room has the ability to make a change wherever you are. The 5 imperatives, the first one is innovate with purpose, not just for speed. In our pursuit for innovation, how fast can we move should not be the only question in our mind. Who are we moving for? When you invest in new ideas, you can measure speed to market, but along with that, you should also measure speed to meaningful impact, across geographies and income segments and everything. So innovation that doesn't reach the underserved is incomplete. And every technology, every product launch, business transformation should be anchored on purpose. If there is a purpose which is missing, then the whole effort on innovation gets lost. The next is build for resilience. We have a lot of case studies wherein you bring in a technology in a rural area. It might be about agriculture, about bringing in sensors and all those things. Once there is a flood or a natural calamity, the whole pace is lost. There is nothing resurrected. So there are compounding shocks in the world which we live in, whether it's climatic changes or societal or geopolitical. Our innovations should be able to overcome those shocks. So we should design systems which are hybrid, adaptive, redundant, so that in case there is some form of an environmental shock, and when I say environmental shock, any form of externality which disrupts the pace, I think the resilience should be there as part of the architecture. The next is innovating fast and smart. I'm sure all of you who is working on AI would come across these discussions about AI being able to do a lot of prototypes, POCs, but nothing getting into scale. Many of them not getting into scale. Some of them getting into scale. We must move from pilots and proof of concepts to platforms and ecosystems, because something which works in one domain, in one geography, might actually be recreated in some other geography. I think we should not confine the experiments inside a lab, because a prototype or an experiment might just change the lab. Only if you take it outside would it change the world. How do you strengthen human capital and systems around technology? Because humans, when you talk about technology or AI or whatever it is, you should not think about how the technology replaces humans. It's about the fact that how humans get value from the technology. How humans provide the context, the conscience, and the care when the technology is being used. So the narrative is, how do we invest in human capital, in reskilling masses, in ensuring that we are ready for the new technology waves. In fact, the Future of Jobs report in 2025 estimates that 59% of workers will need reskilling and upskilling. How do we go about and do that at the right period of time? And the last thing is, how do we collaborate across sectors and geographies? So no single person or no single company or no single country can solve the problems of the world as you may have seen it. It has to be an interconnected way. It has to be collaborated. How can we move away from silos, use the strength of technology with a sense of purpose? And how do we leverage global platforms, shared data, and open standards and alliances? So the era of intelligent progress is not just about smarter machines. It is about smarter humanity. It's about aligning human aspiration with technological capabilities. If we scale innovation globally, build systems of resilience, enable inclusive access, we'll not just keep up with the world's problems, we'll stay ahead, we'll shape the future rather than react on it. And on a closing note, I would also want to bring in a bit of deliberation on the ability of each one of us in this room to bring a change as far as purpose is concerned. The community of software engineers in Kochi is about, 70,000, 80,000 associates. If every individual is able to contribute half an hour into some form of innovation in a month, we are talking of about 1 million hours which can be channelized into something for someone who is underprivileged. The effort which you put in for 2 to 3 days to bring in a new business might be the same amount of effort which some underprivileged kid takes to take a spoon of food to his mouth. A lot of underprivileged kids who needs, the help of the parents all along their life to do the most basic of tasks. With all these hours of work which we look at, which we do for business, and the great amount of innovation which we bring in technology, there might be a bit of spillover of that work. There might be learnings from that work, learnings from that innovation, which you might be able to channelize, which we all would be able to channelize. I'm sure that NASSCOM can play a great role in that. Channelizing a bit of our efforts in a community like ours into something which brings in a purpose for tomorrow. And that technology is going to bring in a smile in someone's life. That's going to be great. I wish a great success for the event today, a great day of deliberations. I wish all the best for the upcoming speakers. And I'm sure that these events from NASSCOM, we're going to have a lot more of this in cities like Kochi. Thanks a lot, everyone, for this, and thank you.